The most dangerous place in life isn't rock bottom. It's okay. It's not bad. It's, well, at least things are stable. That's where the most insidious trap hides, the comfort trap. You haven't hit the ground, so you're not getting back up. But you know what's scarier than failure? Getting stuck in mediocrity forever. Watch till the end. I'll share a practical tool that helped me escape this trap and start growing again. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next videos. You know what scares me the most these days? Not failure, not loss, not even aging. It's a word that's become a trendy form of surrender, saying fine. When someone's asked how they're doing and they say, I'm fine, 90% of the time, it's not an answer, it's a sentence. It's quiet acceptance of less than they deserve. It's an invisible cell in a prison called comfort. And the wildest part, this prison has no bars. It has a coffee maker, an insurance policy, and a steady paycheck. But it's missing the most important thing, growth. This video is for those who might have a roof over their head, can afford Friday night dinners, maybe even a 2-week summer vacation. But inside, something feels off, like life is slipping by, like you've stepped off the highway and landed at a cozy rest stop, permanently. That's how mediocrity begins. It doesn't shout, it whispers, stay. Why risk it when things are okay? I know it well. I've been there. When I was 25, I worked at a Sears store. Everything was fine, seemed stable, but one evening I looked in the mirror and saw someone who had stopped growing, not because he couldn't, but because he got used to it. I was a hard-working guy. I put in long days, but every day looked like the last. I was earning a living but not building a life, and if I hadn't met a man named Earl Schaff, I'd probably have stayed just a good store employee until retirement. His words changed everything. Jim, don't settle for less than you can become. That's what this video is about. Not about loss or failure, but about an invisible zone. Warm, cozy, and dangerous. Because that zone is the true enemy of success. That's where dreams fall asleep. That's where ambition fades. That's where you start believing that this is your ceiling. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt on fire? Not burnt out, on fire? When your heart raced not from anxiety but from anticipation. When a new morning wasn't just another Monday but another opportunity. Today we're diving into that comfort zone, how it steals your bigger future, why fine is the new danger, and how to break out of that zone, even if you've been stuck there for years. And yes, I'll end with a practical exercise that helped me get back on the path of growth. But first, let's take a look inside the heart of this trap. I remember that evening sitting in a small apartment after another long shift at Sears. Nothing particularly bad had happened, but something inside me tightened. I opened my wallet, just a few small bills. I thought about the promises I'd made to my wife, and suddenly it hit me. I was working every day but going nowhere. And the worst part, I'd almost made peace with it. That's right, my friend. The biggest threat isn't that we fail, it's that we get used to mediocrity. We settle. We sign a silent contract with the phrase, well, it's not that bad. But here's what I realized. No great story ever started with, I stayed where it was comfortable. Success isn't a reward for loyalty to stability, it's a reward for betraying mediocrity. Let's be honest, what do we call comfort? It's repetition, it's habits, it's Groundhog Day. It's when the route to the office is so familiar you don't even notice the road. It's when a 2% annual raise feels like an achievement. It's when your self-talk sounds like this. Well, I'm not struggling, right? Plenty of people have it worse. But let me tell you something. Don't compare yourself to those who have less. Compare yourself to who you could become. That's the true measure. Just because someone's behind you doesn't mean you're moving forward. I once heard a wise saying, the temperature of a room that feels comfortable might not be enough for growth. That's why I always say, warm is the new cold. Why? Because in warmth, muscles don't grow. Breakthroughs aren't born. There's no anxiety, but there's also no adrenaline, no risk, and no reward. And you know how this trap gets you? It disguises itself as everything's under control. And it's true, nothing is spinning out, but nothing's breaking through either. Everything's steady, everything's flat, like a hospital. And only at the end of the day do you feel like you lived a day, but didn't move an inch. My mentor, Earl Schaff, once told me, Jim, don't work harder, work deeper. If you're not growing, you're dying slowly, just with air conditioning. That hit hard. but sometimes it takes hard words to break the trance. You know what someone stuck in the middle looks like? They work, they handle their duties, but they never look beyond the horizon. They have routines, but no vision. They can tell you what they're doing next week, but have no clue who they want to be next year. They live like the accountant of their own time, tracking hours, but not investing in the future. I was that person. Before I met Schaff, I had duties and fear, no big dream. He taught me the first rule of breakthrough. You don't earn more than you're worth. You earn exactly what you've become as a person. That shocked me because I worked honestly, but honesty is just the foundation. The house is built on growth, and I wasn't building. I was patching the roof when it rained. Now imagine this. You're standing on the riverbank. Before you lies the river of your potential, but you don't jump because the shore is warm. You've learned to fish from the edge. You tell yourself, I'm not hungry, but deep down you know there's another life out in the middle, not a comfortable one, but a deep one. The comfort trap isn't that you can't do more. It's that you stopped looking for more. You stopped the search, and the search, that's the path. That's what ignites. That's what transforms. And here's what's even more dangerous. Someone in this trap starts calling their pause stability. They justify their inaction. They say, I provide for my family. I'm not a dreamer. I'm a doer. But what kind of doing only preserves and never builds? I've seen people at my seminars, gray-haired, seasoned, accomplished, but in their eyes, I saw emptiness. Because they hadn't been students in a long time, they were prisoners of their titles. Sometimes your past success is your biggest enemy. It lulls you. That's why I've always said, if you work harder on your job than on yourself, your future has already lost some of its power. You shouldn't work just for a paycheck. You should work on yourself so that you become someone impossible to ignore. So that your very presence commands interest, so that you're not just changing your income, you're changing your level of influence. Comfort never leads to impact, it leads to stagnation. It feeds you flavorless bread. You're full, but not alive. And that's what we need to talk about today. Because if you're watching this, there's still a fire inside you, not a fireplace, a spark, and it's waiting to be fanned. One more thing. In this trap, no one screams. There's no pain. And that's what makes it so terrifying, because pain forces action, comfort lulls, and you weren't made to sleepwalk through life. You were made to grow. And if you've made it this far in the videos, I have one question for you. When was the last time you did something that scared you, but also lit you up inside? If you can't remember, it's time. But this isn't the end. Because, my friend, the most important part is still ahead. The most deceptive thing isn't just comfort, it's the identity you've built inside that comfort zone. It tells you this is who you are. You're the one who's always stable, who doesn't take risks, who doesn't dream, who's not a kid anymore. And you don't just live in the warm zone. You become it. You become average. And worse yet, you believe it. I remember being 25, working like an ox, 5 days a week from bell to bell, sometimes more, but there was no growth, not enough money, no opportunities in sight, and motivation fading more and more each week. And the scariest part, I thought that was normal. I was trapped in the illusion of everything's under control until one conversation turned my life around. Earl Schaff, my future mentor, said something that I now repeat to others. Jim, if you want everything around you to change, you have to change first. The world is a mirror. It wasn't just a challenge, it was a mental slap. And I realized I was the main reason I was stuck in an average life. I started with something simple, reading books. Know why? Because my mind was empty. I'd been feeding it routine, chores, and television for years, but I hadn't been planting anything. And as a wise man once said, the mind is a garden. If you don't plant seeds, weeds will grow on their own. And that was true. My garden was full of weeds, doubt, fear, the habit of giving up early. So I started with myself, not by changing jobs, not with a new idea, but by becoming a different person. And here's the paradox. Once I changed myself, my outer world started to change too. New people appeared, new offers, new thoughts. Not because the world suddenly took pity on me, but because I became a new magnetic force, a new frequency, a new resonance. Because here's the truth, success doesn't chase you. It's attracted to you when you grow into its level. And that always starts with refusing to live a fine life. Now I'm talking directly to you. Yes, you. You feel it, don't you? That there's more inside you, that life could be different, that you haven't yet tapped into all you're capable of. If you feel that, Your soul is still alive, and it's knocking from the inside, but only those who stop drowning it out with the everyday noise will hear it. And so the question becomes, why do we stay in the warm zone? Because it's safe? Partly. Because there's no criticism? Maybe. But mainly because it doesn't require change, and change is scary. Change demands pain, honesty, and action. Comfort whispers, why bother? Things are pretty okay. But that okay, it's a golden cage. Quiet, but it doesn't let you fly. I often hear people say, I don't have time for growth, and I ask, how much time do you spend running from your true self? Scrolling, binge watching, winding down at the end of the week? That's not rest, that's escape. And every time you do it, it makes you weaker. Warmth doesn't train you, it relaxes you. And relaxation isn't strength. Strength is a state of tone, a state where you live fully without tiring. Not because it's easy, but because the inner fire is burning. I remember at one of my seminars, a man came up to me, good job, house, family, but his eyes, empty. He said, I did everything right, but I'm not happy. And I told him, because you did everything right for someone else, not for yourself. Your soul doesn't want what's right, it wants what's real. Here's the most important thing I want to give you today. The trap of the average isn't about something being wrong with you. It's about you already being great, but shrinking yourself to a comfortable size. Look at yourself like an investor. You are capital, and every day you're either depreciating or gaining value, depending on what you're investing in, comfort or growth. And one more thing, those who truly made a breakthrough didn't do it when they were ready. They did it when they couldn't stay still anymore. The point of no return, that's the real starting line. And it's rarely dramatic. It comes at night, in silence. In that moment when you catch yourself thinking, I was made for more, but I've been waiting too long. So I'm telling you today, stop waiting, because every minute spent in the middle is a minute stolen from your greatness. It doesn't matter how old you are, what you've lost, or how many times you've started over. What matters is whether you're ready to say, enough. I'm moving forward. I'm stepping out of the warm into the heat. Because trust me, it's out there, beyond comfort, where the life worth living truly begins. But hold on, this still isn't the end. Up next, the third and deepest part, where we'll talk about true transformation and how to break the contract with mediocrity once and for all. And now, after tearing down the veil of self-comfort, it's time to speak the truth directly. Mediocrity isn't just a result, it's a choice. And the longer you accept it, the more it becomes a part of your identity. You don't just live a normal life, you start to believe that's all you deserve. I once said from stage, if you're still justifying why you can't, it means you haven't decided who you want to become. And it's true, most people don't fall behind because they lack knowledge or resources. They simply haven't made the final decision to grow. Growth is an internal decision that doesn't depend on circumstances. It's a state where you say, enough explaining why I'm stuck, I'm moving forward even if I can't see the whole path. Just like the gym, you don't wait until you're in shape to go. You go to the gym to get in shape. Same with life. You don't wait for perfect conditions to start a new chapter. You start the chapter. And that's what creates the conditions. I've seen it dozens of times. People who finally said, I'm done living at the minimum of my potential. They changed. Not overnight, not without fear, but they changed. They picked up books that had been gathering dust. They attended seminars even if they were afraid they wouldn't get it. They started speaking differently, walking differently, thinking differently, and the world responded. Why? Because the world always reflects our internal quality. And if you believe you're just average, don't be surprised when life gives you average in return. I've always taught, work more on yourself than you do on your job. Your job gives you a paycheck, but your personal growth gives you your life. And until you commit to that, nothing outside will shift. And no, this isn't about giant radical steps. It's about daily, boring, simple, disciplined work on yourself. Yes, on yourself, because the real fight isn't with circumstances. It's with that inner habit of lowering your own standards. One of the most dangerous things I've heard people say is, it's too late for me to change. Friend, too late is when you're gone. As long as you're breathing, as long as your heart is beating, it's not too late. My mentor Shof once told me, Jim, trees grow until their last day. Why did you decide to stop earlier? Think about that. When trees age, they don't shrink. They reach for the sky. And you, are you still reaching or have you already bowed your head? And you know what? that's where the real shift begins. When you catch yourself living on autopilot and stop. When you wake up not with the thought, just another day, but with the challenge, who am I becoming today? Because each day is a workshop where your identity is being shaped, and only you decide whether it becomes a masterpiece or just a quick sketch drawn between coffee and traffic. Hear me on this. You are not what you do. You are who you become. And that's a process, not a single moment. That's why the middle zone is so dangerous. It freezes that process. It pauses your growth forever. One man at my seminar once said to me, "Jim, I feel like my life is just on pause." And I told him, life doesn't have a pause button. If you're not playing, someone else is, and they're taking your place. In other words, if you're not investing in growth, you're investing in stagnation. If you're not growing, someone else is growing in your place. And here's the painful truth. The greatest opportunities don't disappear. They just go to those who were ready for them. And if you're not preparing, you didn't lose. You simply weren't playing. That's why today I'm urging you, step out of the warm state, ignite your own fire. Yes, it'll be uncomfortable, but you weren't made for comfort. You were made for fulfillment. And you know how it all ends? Not with silence, but with the joy of an inner breakthrough. When for the first time in a long time, you look in the mirror and don't just see someone going through the motions, but a person who's alive, who chooses, who grows, who became what they could have been all along, the moment they allowed themselves to want more than just fine. And this still isn't the end. Now it's time to move to practice, to action, because only action reshapes identity. All right, we've now walked through 3 powerful circles. We broke down how the trap of mediocrity hides behind the word fine, how it halts our growth and reshapes our identity, and how awareness of that trap can reboot our lives. But awareness is just the first step. Now comes the moment for action. So let me ask you 5 questions. Don't overthink. Don't pause the video. Just listen and answer on the fly with your heart. Because your heart knows exactly where you are and who you could become. Rate each question on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 equals completely disagree, and 10 equals fully agree, or this is already true for me. Question 1. How honestly can I say that the past 30 days of my life were about growing, not just surviving? Imagine yourself as a tree. Were you just standing in the soil? Or were you growing new roots? Be honest. Have you just been staying afloat? Question 2. Do I have a clear vision of who I want to be in 3 to 5 years? And am I living today in alignment with that vision? This is one of the most powerful mirrors, because if you don't have a vision, you'll become part of someone else's. Question 3. Can I honestly say that every day I do at least one thing that scares me but helps me grow? This isn't about grand gestures. Sometimes just calling instead of texting is a victory. Growth always lives outside the comfort zone. Question 4. How much does my environment today support my growth, not my complacency? Remember, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they lifting you up or holding you still? Question 5. Do I feel like I'm really living or just filling up my calendar? This is your heart monitor. If it's just a flat line of tasks, meetings, and routine, then your soul is quiet, but it's meant to sing. Now pause for a moment. Walked through them? Good. Now imagine taking all those scores and plotting a curve. That's your current position, but remember, this is not your limit. It's just your starting point. Even if you scored 3s or 4s, that's not failure. That's a lit up warning light. Wake up, you haven't even tapped half of your potential. Now promise yourself this, revisit these questions after the video. Take a sheet of paper, write down your answers, look at them, and then ask yourself one more question. What would these answers look like if I had never settled for fine? Because here's the core truth. Growth is a decision, and it's not made once, it's made daily. And one more thing I want you to hear. This channel, this video isn't just for inspiration. It's your new anchor. If you're ready to rebuild yourself from the ground up, reset your goals, reboot your philosophy, I'm here. Together, we'll break old scripts, ask bold questions, and chase fearless answers. So if this video hits you, subscribe. It's not just a click, it's a step, a micro action that says, I didn't just listen, I'm ready to move forward. Hit that like button if even one of the questions made you stop and think. And drop a comment. Which question number hit you the hardest? Even better, share your honest score. and see what others wrote, because your comment might be someone else's mirror. And that is impact. Now, take a deep breath. You've already come far, but up ahead is the final powerful closing note. Want it? Then let's keep going. And here we are, you and I. You've listened all the way, from the first word to this very moment. And if you're still with me, it means something inside you has awakened, something long forgotten. Maybe a voice from your youth, maybe a memory of a dream you once had, or maybe just a quiet certainty whispering, I wasn't made just to exist. Because let's be honest, this world doesn't reward those who settle comfortably. It rewards those who choose to grow when others stop, to burn hot when everyone else has gone cold, to keep searching for more even when enough is on the table. Now look at your life, not with judgment, but with responsibility. Not as a string of random events, but as a canvas, big, open, still unfinished. And ask yourself, am I painting a masterpiece or just smearing color? And here's the truth. You can always turn your fine into unforgettable, always. Not on Monday, not on New Year's Day, but with the very next morning. All it takes is a decision, a simple one, a firm one, a final one. Because like I once said, discipline is the bridge between goals and results. And if you build that bridge, I promise you, on the other side, you won't just find success, you'll find inner peace, the kind of calm that only comes when you live fully. So who will you be tomorrow? Part of the average? Or the person they'll one day speak of and say, that was the moment and the choice where it all began? I believe you've already made that choice. See you in the next video.